Start recording. Start recording. Camera chooser. Stop recording. Button.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to prop you up here again as per the usual. We're about, I don't know, 3/8 of the way through our final volume. See, working in the mathematics there. Don't want to lose out on your whole arithmetic operation. So we're back with Diary of a Wimpy Kid Dog Days in the final volume. And we're kicking off, rather unfittingly, because it's Friday today, at Monday. So, for the wonderful world of Greg Heffley, it's Monday. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days, by Jeff Kinney, Monday. I guess I should have known that a bike that was left out with the trash wasn't going to last very long. I was riding home from the pool yesterday, and the bike started getting all wobbly. Then, the front wheel popped right off. So, today, I had to ask Mom for a ride to the pool. When we got there, Mom said I had to take Manny with me through the locker room. She said he's getting too old to go through the woman's locker room with her. So, I guess they must have the same shower situation in there as they do in the men's locker room. It should have taken 5 seconds to get Manny from one end of the locker room to the other, but it took about 10 minutes instead. Manny goes everywhere with Mom, so he had never actually been in a men's bathroom before. He was really curious and wanted to check everything out. At one point, I had to stop him from washing his hands in the urinal because, I guess, he thought it was a sink. I didn't want Manny to have to walk through the shower area and see the things I've seen. So, I got a towel out of my bag and was just gonna put it over Manny's eyes when we walked past the shower guys. But in the 2 seconds it took me to get my towel, Manny was gone, and you'll never believe where he went. Manny was in the shower between two men. I knew I had to rescue Manny, so I closed my eyes as tightly as I could and went to save him. I was really nervous about touching one of the shower guys, and for a second there, I thought I did. Me. Shriek! Which is Latin for whoop! That was fun. I had to open my eyes to find Manny, and then I grabbed him and got out of there as fast as I could. When we got to the other side, Manny seemed fine, but I don't think I'll ever totally recover from that experience. I kind of staggered over to my spot underneath Heather's lifeguard chair. Then I started taking deep breaths to calm myself down. 5 minutes later, some kid who must have eaten too much ice cream threw up behind Heather's chair. Heather looked behind her, and then she looked down like she was waiting for me to do something. I guess the noble thing to do was to clean up the mess for Heather, but that was really beyond the call of duty. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I've realized that I need to let this summer romance cool off a little. Plus, Heather's going off to college next year, and those long-distance relationships never really seem to work out. There's a little captiony thing here. It says, Greg creeps off while Heather cleans up the vomit. August, Tuesday. We ran into the Jeffersons at the supermarket today. Me and Rowley haven't spoken to each other in over a month, so it was kind of awkward. Mrs. Jefferson said they were buying groceries for their trip to the beach next week. That kind of irritated me because that's where my family was supposed to go this summer. But then Mrs. Jefferson said something that really threw me for a loop. Mrs. Jefferson, how would Gregory like to come to join us? Mr. Jefferson didn't look too thrilled with that idea, but before he could speak up, Mom chimed in. Mom, why, Gregory would love to. Something about the whole incident seemed a little fishy to me. I'm kind of wondering if it was a setup with Mom and Mrs. Jefferson, conspiring to get me and Rowley back together. Believe me, Rowley's the last person I want to spend a week with. But then I realized if I went to the beach with the Jeffersons, I'd get to ride the cranium shaker. So maybe my summer won't be such a bust after all. Monday. I knew I made a mistake coming on this beach trip when I saw where we were staying. The family arrived at the quiet cove. My family always rents a condo in the high-rises right near the boardwalk, but the place where the Jeffersons are staying is a log cabin miles from the beach. We went inside the cabin, and there was no TV or computer or anything with a screen on it. I asked what we were supposed to do for entertainment, and Mrs. Jefferson said, "You could read a book." I thought that was a good one, and I was about to tell Rowley his mom was pretty funny, but she came back a second later with a bunch of reading material. So that was confirmed. Mom was in on this plan from the beginning. All three Jeffersons read their books right up until it was time to eat. Dinner was okay, but dessert was awful. Mrs. Jefferson is one of those moms who sneaks a healthy food into your snacks, and her brownies were full of spinach. I don't think it's a good idea to grind up vegetables and put them in kids' dessert, because then they don't know what the real thing is supposed to taste like. The first time Rowley had a regular brownie was at my house, and believe me, it wasn't pretty. Rowley spits out the brownie. After dinner, Mrs. Jefferson called us all into the living room to play games. I was hoping we were gonna play something normal, like cards, but the Jeffersons have their own idea of fun. The Jeffersons played a game called I Love You Because, and when was my turn, I passed. Mrs. Jefferson to Rowley, I love you because you're silly and you make me laugh. Then we played charades, and when it was Rowley's turn, he was a dog. Rowley, ruff, ruff, ruff. Mrs. Jefferson, Mrs. Jefferson, a cute, adorable boy. Mr. Jefferson, an awesome, friendly kid. At about 9 o'clock, Mr. Jefferson told us it was time for bed. That's when I found out the sleeping situation at the Jeffersons' cabin was worse than the entertainment situation. There was only one bed, so I had told Rowley we could make a deal. We'd flip a coin, and one guy would get the bed, and the other would sleep on the floor. But Rowley took a look at the crusty shag carpet and decided he didn't want to risk it. I decided I wasn't willing to sleep on the floor either. So I got into the bed with Rowley and just stayed as far away from him as possible. Rowley started snoring right away, but I was having trouble falling asleep, with half my body hanging off the bed. I was finally starting to drift off when Rowley let out a scream like he was being attacked. For a second there, I thought the muddy hand had finally caught up with us. Rowley's parents came running in to see what happened. Rowley said he was having a nightmare, that there was a chicken hiding underneath him. So, Rowley's parents spent the next 20 minutes trying to calm him down and telling him it was just a bad dream and there really was no chicken. Rowley sniffed. Really? Nobody bothered to check on how I was doing after falling off the bed onto my face. Rowley spent the rest of the night sleeping in his parents' room, which was fine with me, because without Rowley and his chicken dreams to keep me awake, I was able to get a good night's sleep. Wednesday. I've been stuck inside this cabin for 3 days now, and I'm really starting to lose my mind. I've been trying to get Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson to take us to the boardwalk, but they say it's too noisy there. I've never gone this long without TV or computers or video games, and I'm starting to feel kind of desperate. When Mr. Jefferson works late at night on his laptop, I sneak downstairs and watch him just to get a glimpse of the outside world. I've tried to get Mr. Jefferson to let me use his laptop a couple of times, but he says it's his work computer, and he doesn't want me to mess anything up. Last night, I was at my breaking point, so I did something a little risky. When Mr. Jefferson got up to use the bathroom, I jumped at my chance. I rattled off an email to Mom as quickly as I could, then ran upstairs and got into bed. To Heffley Susan, subject, SOS. Help! Help! Get me out of these here. These people are driving me crazy. When I came downstairs for breakfast this morning, Mr. Jefferson didn't look too happy to see me. It turns out that I sent the email from Mr. Jefferson's work account, and Mom answered back. To Jefferson Robert, subject, read. SOS. Family holidays can be a challenge. Is Gregory not behaving himself? Susan. I thought Mr. Jefferson was going to really let me have it, but he didn't say anything at all. Then Mrs. Jefferson said, maybe we could go to the boardwalk later on this afternoon and spend an hour or two there. Well, that's all I was ever going to ask for. A few hours is all I really need. If I can just ride the cranium shaker once, I'll feel like this trip wasn't a total waste of time. Friday. I'm back home from the beach. 2 days early, and if you want to know the reason why, it's kind of a long story. The Jeffersons took me and Rowley to the boardwalk yesterday afternoon. I wanted to go on the cranium shaker right away, but the line was too long, so we decided to get some food and come back later. We got some ice cream, but Mrs. Jefferson only ordered one cone for 4 of us to share. Rowley, want a lick? Mom gave me $30 to spend at the beach, and I blew 20 of it on this one carnival game. I was trying to win a giant stuffed caterpillar, but I think they have those games rigged so you can't succeed. Rowley watched me blow my $20, and then he asked his dad to buy him the exact same giant caterpillar at a shop next door. And the thing that really stinks is that it only cost him $10. I think Mr. Jefferson is making a big mistake with a move like that. Now, Rowley feels like a winner, even though he isn't. I've had my own experience with that sort of thing. Last year, when I was on the swim team, they had this special swim meet I got invited to on a Sunday. When I showed up, I realized none of the good swimmers were there. It was only the kids who had never won a ribbon before. At first, I was pretty happy because I thought I might actually win something for once. I still didn't do well though. My event was the 100-meter freestyle, and I got so pooped that I had to walk the last lap. But the judges didn't disqualify me, and at the end of the night, I got a first place ribbon, which my parents handed to me. In fact, everyone walked away with first place ribbons, even Tommy Lamb, who got turned around in the backstroke and swam the wrong way. The ribbon read, "Number 1, you are a winner to us." When I got home, I was confused, but then Roderick saw me with my first place champion's ribbon and gave me the scoop. Roderick told me that the champions meet is just a scam put on by parents to make their kids feel like winners. I guess parents think they're doing their kids a favor by going through with all that, but if you ask me, I think it was just causes more problems down the road. I remember when I used to be on the t-ball team and everyone would cheer when I struck out. Then, the next year, in junior baseball, all my teammates and the other parents would boo me off the field if I dropped a pop fly or something. All I'm saying is if Rowley's parents want to make him feel good about himself, they can't do it now when he's a kid and then walk away. They've got to stick with him all the way through. There's a caption-y thing here. Rowley has a shop called Shea Rowley. The cake he is decorating has collapsed. Elderly Mr. Jefferson. Good job, Rowley. Rowley. Really? After the caterpillar thing, I was, or just walked up and down the boardwalk waiting for the line for the cranium shaker to go down. Then I saw something that got my attention. It was that girl from Roderick's keychain picture. But here's the thing. She wasn't a real person. She was a cardboard cutout. I felt like an idiot for ever thinking that she was a real girl. Then I realized I could buy my own keychain picture and impress all the guys at school. I might even be able to make some money by charging them to look at it. I paid my $5 and posed for my photo. Unfortunately, the Jeffersons got into the picture with me, so now my souvenir keychain is pretty much worthless. I was really mad, but forgot all about it when I saw the line for the cranium shaker was down to a few people. I ran over to the ride and used my last $5 to pay for a ticket. I thought Rowley was right behind me, but he was hanging back 10 feet. I guess he was too scared to go on. I was starting to have second thoughts myself, but it was too late. After the ride operator strapped me in, he locked the cage, and I knew there was no turning back now. Well, I wish I had spent my time watching what the cranium shaker actually did to a person, because I never would have gotten on if I had. It flips you upside down about 1,000,000 times and then throws you toward the ground so your face is about 6 inches from the pavement. Then it sends you spinning backwards up to the sky again. And the whole time the cage you're in is creaking and all the boards look like they're about to come off. I tried to get someone to stop the ride, but nobody could hear me over the pounding heavy metal music. It was the most nauseous I've ever felt in my life. And when I saw that when I say that, I mean even more after all. What in the world? Let's try this again. Something is a little bit askew here. And when I say that, I mean even more than after I had to get Manny out of the shower area at the town pool. If this is what it takes to be a man, I am definitely not ready yet. When the ride finally ended, I could barely walk. So I sat down on a bench and waited for the boardwalk to stop spinning. I stayed there a long time and focused on trying not to throw up, while Rowley rode some rides that were more his speed. Rowley on the bumper boats. Whee! After Rowley was done with his kiddie rides, his dad bought him a boppy balloon and a shirt proclaiming, "I survived the cranium shaker." From that souvenir shop. A half hour later, I was finally ready to try standing up and walked around again. But when I got on my feet, Mr. Jefferson said it was time to go. I asked him if we could just play a few games in the arcade, and he said, okay, even though he didn't seem happy about it. I had spent all the money Mom gave me, so I told Mr. Jefferson $20 would probably do it, but all he was willing to offer me was $1. I think the arcade was too loud for Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson, so they didn't want to go inside. They told us to go in ourselves and meet them outside in 10 minutes. I went to the back of the arcade where they have this game called Thundervolt. I spent about $50 on the game last year, and I got the high score. I wanted Rowley to see my name at the top of the list because I wanted to show him what it was like to win something without it being handed to you. Well, my name was still at the top of the list, but the person who got the next highest score must have been jealous they couldn't beat me. High scores. 1. Greg Heffley. 25,320. 2. Is an idiot. 25,310. 3. Jarhead. 71 something. 71,024,200. 4. Reckless. 22,100. 5. Craven 1. 215,000. 6. Pokachimp 88. 21,250. 7. Wild Dog. 21,200. 8. Zippy. 20,300. 9. Snarl Carl. 20,100. And 10. Leandrew, or something. 19,250. I unplugged the machine to try and wipe out the high scores, but they were burned into the screen permanently. I was going to just spend our money on some other game, but then I remembered a trick Roderick told me about, and I realized we could make the dollar last a lot longer. Me and Rowley walked outside and went underneath the boardwalk. Then I slipped the dollar bill up between the planks of wood and waited for our first victim. Eventually, a teenager spotted the dollar sticking out of the boardwalk. Teenager. Score! When he went to grab it, I pulled the dollar bill through the slat at the last second. I have to hand it to Roderick because this was actually a lot of fun. The teenagers we pranked weren't too happy though, and they came after us. Me and Rowley ran as fast as we could, and we didn't stop until we were pretty sure we shook those guys, but I still didn't feel safe. I asked Rowley to show me some of the moves he learned in karate so we could handle those guys if they found us. But Rowley said he's a gold belt in karate, and he wasn't going to teach his moves to a no belt. We hid there a while more, but the teenagers never showed up, and eventually we decided the coast was clear. That's when we realized we were underneath Kittyland. So there was a whole new batch of victims for our dollar bill trick right above our heads, and we got a much better reaction out of those kids than we did from the teenagers. Greg pranks one child and made him cry. That was a caption, by the way. But one of the kids was really fast, and he grabbed the dollar before I could pull it down. So, me and Rowley had to go up on the boardwalk to get it back. This kid wasn't budging, though. I tried to explain the concept of personal property to him, but he still wouldn't give us our money. I was getting pretty frustrated with this kid, and that's when Rowley's parents showed up. I was pretty glad to see them, because I figured if anyone could talk some sense into this kid, it was Mr. Jefferson. But Mr. Jefferson was mad, and I mean really mad. He said he and Mrs. Jefferson had been looking all over for us for the past hour, and they were ready to call the police to report us missing. Then he told us we had to get in the car, but on the way to the parking lot, we walked past the arcade. I asked Mr. Jefferson if we could please have another dollar, since we never did get to spend the one he gave us. But I guess that wasn't the right thing to ask, because he took us back to the car without saying a word. When we got back to the cabin, Mr. Jefferson said me and Rowley had to go straight to our room. That really stunk, because it wasn't even 8, and it was still light outside. But Mr. Jefferson said we had to go to bed, and that he didn't want to hear a peep out of us until morning. Rowley was taking it pretty hard. From the way he was acting, I don't think he's ever been in trouble with his dad before. I decided to lighten the mood a little bit. I walked around on the shag carpet and then gave Rowley a static electricity shock as a joke. That seemed to get Rowley to snap out of it. He walked around in a circle for about 5 minutes, rubbing his feet on the carpet, and then got me back while I was brushing my teeth. I couldn't let Rowley one-up me like that, so when he got into bed, I got his boppy balloon, pulled back the giant rubber band, and let it rip. If I had to do it again, maybe I wouldn't have pulled back so hard. When Rowley saw the red mark on his arm, he screamed, and I knew that was gonna attract attention. Sure enough, his parents were up in our room in 5 seconds. Rowley, pointing at Greg. He burned me! I tried to explain that the mark on Rowley's arm was from a rubber band, but that didn't seem to matter to the Jeffersons. They called up my parents, and 2 hours later, Dad was at the cabin to pick me up and take me home. And we'll stop there. We'll pick up again at Monday, perhaps on Monday, but I'm going to guess over the weekend. Thanks for coming out and watching, and we're going to shut her down.
Stop recording. Camera. Stop recording.